Hi everyone, and welcome to our lecture. My name is Christian, and I'm pleased to announce the next speakers. Representing Special Olympics Belgium, an organization aiming for social integration of people with a mental disability by utilizing sports. First, we would like to welcome Annelies Matthé, a coordinator of the Healthy Athletes program at Special Olympics Belgium. Following that, Thibeau, a Special Olympics athlete and athletes ambassador, will join us and answer some interesting personal questions. And if you have any questions yourself, be sure to leave them in the chat box so we can propose them to our speakers. I'm now going to leave the word to Annelies Matthé. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy the lecture.
Hello everybody and welcome for the nice introduction. So I'm going to start to tell you a little bit more about Special Olympics. It's an organization worldwide which is set up by Eunice Kennedy Shriver, and you can hear it already on the name Kennedy. It's indeed family of President John F. Kennedy. Now, John F. Kennedy and Eunice, they had another sister called Rosemary, and she had an intellectual disability. And Eunice, she thought, it's not nice that my sister is not welcome in the community, in the society, and that's why she started organizing sport camps in her backyard. And actually, from that backyard sport camp, the organization of Special Olympics was founded, and now 52 years later, we are a worldwide organization aiming, like Christian already told, aiming to work around inclusion for people with intellectual disability through sports. We are recognized by the International Olympic Committee, so we are actually one of the 3 Olympic families. Like the Olympic Games, like the Paralympic Games, we have the Special Olympics. And like I said, worldwide organization, 193 countries that we are reaching, and in all those countries you have a national Special Olympics organization, and by that way we are reaching 5.5 million athletes. Now, I told you we have the Olympics, we have the Special Olympics, and we have the Paralympics, but it's very important that there is a difference between the 2 organizations, Special Olympics and Paralympics. Special Olympics is mostly for people with an intellectual disability. It is possible that on a second hand, beside that intellectual disability, they also have a physical disability, but it is only athletes with an IQ under 75 can participate in the Special Olympics. On the other hand, we have the Paralympics, and Paralympics is for people mostly with a physical disability, but again, the last few years and the last Paralympic Games, in a few sports, there were also people with an intellectual disability that participated. That's one big difference, the target group. Other differences are that in Special Olympics we have athletes of all levels. So that means that we have an athlete who runs a marathon, and very fast, much faster than any of you will do. But on the other hand, we also have athletes that go into the water with another person just to help them and swim 50 meters. So we have really all the levels, while at Paralympics it's athletes of the higher level, of course. In Special Olympics, it's most important to train regularly, to participate. That's what we want. We want healthy athletes that are doing sports. And we also have a system which is called divisioning. So that means that actually before the competition starts, we are going to ask all our athletes for their results. For example, 100-meter sprint. And then we are going, based on those results, based on their fastest time, we are going to division them in categories. So actually every athlete in a certain category has more or less the same time and therefore has more or less the same chance on winning that gold medal. That are the big differences, because in Paralympics, of course, winning is very important, and you have those qualification with the quarter-final, half-final, and then the finals. So I'm going to start with a video, and I just want to ask you to have a good look on the different type of athletes, because ID, it's very broad, and you will see it also in the videos. When you look at those athletes, you will see that there is really a big difference between the level and how that intellectual disability shows. So then the video can start.
On the name Kennedy, it's indeed family of President John F. Kennedy. Now, John F. Kennedy and Eunice, they had another sister called Rosemary, and she had an intellectual disability. And Eunice, she thought, it's not nice that my sister is not welcome in the community, in the society, and that's why she started organizing sport camps in her backyard. And actually, from that backyard sport camp, the organization of Special Olympics was founded, and now 52 years later we are a worldwide organization aiming, like Christian already told, aiming to work around inclusion for people with intellectual disability through sports. In her backyard, and actually from that backyard sport camp, the organization of Special Olympics was founded, and now 52 years later we are a worldwide organization aiming, like Christian already told, aiming to work around inclusion for people with intellectual disability through sports. In her backyard, and actually from the backyard sport camp, the organization of Special Olympics was founded, and now 52 years later we are a worldwide organization aiming, like Christian already told, aiming to work around inclusion for people with intellectual disability through sports.
The silence is in quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise we would take the world to its feet. Bring it to its feet. Silence is all day. And I'll rise up. I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up. I'll rise up afraid. I'll rise up. And I do it 1,000 times again. Bring it to its feet. We have each other, and for that we have each other, and we will rise, we will rise, we will rise, I'll rise up, rise like the day, I'll rise up. In spite of the ache, I will rise 1,000 times again, and we'll rise up. I like the waves, we'll rise up. In spite of the ache, we'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again.
So I think you have a really good idea now of what is Special Olympics, who are our athletes, and especially what warmth and what joy do our athletes show. Now I want to tell you a little bit about Special Olympics Belgium. So that's the organization where I and Audrey and Thibeau work for, and Audrey and Thibeau, they will come in later in the presentation. So it's of course the same target group that we aim for. We want to reach people with an intellectual disability and offer them sport. And through sport, we want to empower them and we want to include them in the society. Special Olympics Belgium was founded in 1979, and very special for our organization in comparison with the other countries is that every year we organize national games. I will come back on those national games, what it is in a later slide. What we also do is every 4 years, like you have the Paralympic summer and winter games and Olympic winter and summer games, we also have that at Special Olympics. So our athletes from Belgium go every 4 years to either a World Summer Game or a World Winter Game. And there's also some protection for the organization from the Belgium Olympic and Interfederal Committee, and also our Majesty the King and Queen of Belgium. Now I want to go to some numbers. So in Belgium there are 165,000 people with an intellectual disability. So that's already a big number. But if you count with that also the parents of those people, the teachers, the brothers, the sisters, then you actually are reaching 1 million people directly and indirectly in Belgium on a population of about 11 million people. So it's a lot of people that are involved in this intellectual disability, but still there's a big taboo, and that is something that we as an organization are also trying to break down. In Belgium, we are reaching at the moment 19,173 athletes and also a lot of volunteers, because for those national games we need so many volunteers. It's almost, I think, 6,000 people during those 4 days. So 11,000 with then also 6,000 on the national games and a few more on smaller day activities, for example. And the worldwide numbers, I already told you about that. So that's 5.5 million people of athletes that we reach worldwide. So our objective, I already talked about. We want to promote the integration and development of people with intellectual disability through sports, and that in a sustainable manner. We want to break down the taboo that I told you about. We want to reach also in 2020 20,000 athletes or people with an ID. We want to make sure that they are already doing sport and are being active, and we want to organize fantastic events. And about those national games, so normally we should have organized our 38th edition this year, but due to Corona we had to cancel it. But a few numbers on those national games. So it's 4 days. We are reaching 3,400 athletes, 1,200 coaches, and it's actually our athletes are coming from clubs, sport clubs, but also institutions and so on, and about 1,800 volunteers per day, 20 sports. But it's much more than sport, like you have in the Paralympics and the Olympic Games. We are starting with a big opening ceremony. At the end we have a closing ceremony. We go with the Olympic flame and we run through the cities where we are at that moment to show the Olympic flame. That's the torch run, and then of course there's a healthy athletes program, and that's the program especially that I want to talk to you today about. Just to give you an idea about our sports, and very important is that some of them are unified sports, and Thibeau, the athlete that will come in later, he's actually also doing one of those unified sports, so he will tell you all about it, what it is exactly. And then the Healthy Athletes program. So actually, a fact, I want to start with that. People with intellectual disabilities are at increased risk for several preventable health conditions and experience higher mortality rates. So this is actually the reason why Special Olympics International started the Healthy Athletes program. We see that in this population, this vulnerable population, there are a lot of medical problems, and that those problems often remain undiagnosed. So it's often on that Healthy Athletes program that we offer during those national games that medical problems are being diagnosed for the first time. And I just want to give you some numbers of an article that was published in the Lancet. So they researched the deaths of 247 people with ID in England, and we saw actually that indeed, like I said in the previous slide, the mortality rates are much higher than in general population. So that's the first actually that you see that 22% of those 247 people are actually dying before the age of 50, while in the general population that's only 9%. So that's already a big difference. Median age is around 64 years old, and we see that there's a difference between female and male. So the male people with ID, they usually die 13 years younger than in general population, while for the female it's even 20 years younger. So I think those are already numbers that's very important to take in your back of your mind when you're in the future treating people with ID. It's very important to have attention for that. And I think I want to show you now a next video. It was made by Special Olympics International about inclusive health. So I think that's a nice introduction as well to the Healthy Athletes program that I will talk you more about in a minute.
That was a great time being part of a basketball team at the Special Olympics World Games.
My players have intellectual disabilities, or ID, but they could take on any athletes.
Still, a main challenge for these athletes with ID takes place in the health and wellness arena. The reality is a disparity, a real gap between the health of those without intellectual disabilities and those with ID. The gap includes access to quality healthcare for chronic conditions like heart disease or preventing diseases with vaccines.
Sometimes patients like me aren't good at expressing our symptoms. And sometimes doctors aren't trained to understand those of us with ID. For me and my teammates, doctors' visits are often too short. And our lives are often too short because of delays in prevention and treatment. My teammates and I will likely die 16 years younger than the general population. 16!
The solution is inclusion. Get in there. Special Olympics has provided 1.9 million health screenings and trained over 220,000 health professionals. We're making sure that those with ID have year-round access to health care, prevention, and wellness programs. These victories of inclusion for people with ID are a triumph for human rights.
So people with ID need your help. Choose to include me at your doctor's office. Include me on your sports team. And include me in your community. So I will reach my full potential and inspire others. Okay, hands in.
The revolution is inclusion.
So again, I think in that video there are certainly a couple of take-home messages for you to take as the doctors for the future. So make sure that once you are there, think about those things that you have seen in this video. The Healthy Athletes program. So like I said, it's a program that we offer during our national games. And it's actually a program which was founded by Special Olympics International. So they did that with a lot of different experts, always in the field of a specific discipline. So we have in Belgium 8 different disciplines. The first is Fun Fitness. Fun Fitness is actually a program which is run by physiotherapists, by students in physiotherapy, and they screen the general condition of the athlete, flexibility, strength, and balance. Then we have Healthy Hearing. for that program, we work together with audiologists, students in audiology, but also ENT specialists. And of course, there we test the hearing and the ears. Opening eyes, we screen the visual system. Healthy Body is a program which is set up in Belgium. So it's only in Belgium that we offer Healthy Body program, and it's done by osteopaths. So it's an osteopathic examination of the body structures and tissues. Special Smiles are the dentists, the students in dentistry, so the mouth and the tooth screening, and also the brushing habits are being checked for. Then we have podologists in fit feet, so it's not only the feet that they look, but they also do a gait analysis. They look at the skin of the feet, the nails, the joints, and very important also the shoe size. Then we have health promotion, which is more an educational screening program, but also they check for BMI, blood pressure, but they also check for example, healthy eating, hydration, sun protection. So that's advice, very practical advice that is given to the athletes. And then diabetes prevention, which is also again a program which is only run in Belgium. We set it up in 2019, and there we check actually the risk of type 2 diabetes. And so in general, why do we do this program? Like I said, there are a lot of medical problems in people with ID that occur much frequently than in a general population, but also those problems are often not recognized by the athlete himself, by his parents, by the coach, his peers. And it's actually a number of reasons why that happens. First of all, sometimes the athlete can communicate that he's in pain. Sometimes he doesn't know that it's actually not normal, that his foot is being painful, although he has a smaller shoe size, but he doesn't know that it's not normal to feel these things. But what we also sometimes see is like the parents, like I said before, that they don't recognize that there is a problem. We had, for example, a mother that said, okay, my child, she's not engaging with her coach, she's not doing the activities like the other athletes are doing. And she said that's because she has an intellectual disability. But in fact, we saw during those testing that she had a hearing problem. So the mother said it's due to the intellectual disability that she's not participating, but in reality, the child had a hearing problem and therefore she couldn't understand the coach, and that was the real reason why she didn't participate. So a lot of medical problems, and of course we are still focusing on sports, so we want fitter athletes at the start of the competition, and therefore a fitter athlete will also be a healthier athlete. And of course, all those screenings, they are offered during the national games, but they are all free, and athletes actually can choose if they want to participate and come to those screenings or not. And then we are doing those screenings already since 2003. So that means that we have gathered a lot of data. We really have a good understanding of how the medical condition of people with ID is, and we have a good idea of what are the frequent medical problems that they encounter. And with those data, we want to go to the peers, to the parents, to the coaches, but also to policymakers to create awareness about it and to make sure that something is being done. And that something is being done, so to increase the healthcare for people with ID, I will explain in a later slide when we are talking about the Special Smiles program. Of course, for the athletes, we want to make sure if there is a problem, that those problems are being identified. And what we also do is in every discipline, we give advice to them, very specific advice. And if necessary, we will give them a letter to make sure that after the games they will go to a specialist to further follow up what we have identified. And another specific objective of this program is for our volunteers. So I said already, we are working together with students and also professionals of a certain discipline, for example, fitness with physiotherapy students and physiotherapists. But we know actually that in general, the topic of ID is not very frequently offered in a curriculum. Same for the medical students. So that's the left picture on the bottom of the slide. We know that ID is not enough represented in the curriculum. So people, therefore, they don't really know how to interact with them. They are often also afraid of people with ID. And through this Healthy Athletes program, which is very low threshold and very easygoing, both volunteers get used to people with ID. They learn how to interact with them, and at the end, actually, they take all those what they have learned with them for their future career. And we see really that in the end, when they are students are having their own practice, that they are much more confident about if they're having a patient with ID in front of them to treat them. So we really see a lot of beneficial effects for those volunteers as well. Like I said, it's a cooperation with Healthy Athletes program of the universities, the colleges of higher education and professional associations. And we also work together with service clubs, companies, the governmental institution. So we really have the whole package of partnerships. Now I want to go through some findings, because I think for you guys those findings will be very striking as well. And I think it's very important to take those numbers with you when you're working in the future with people with ID. So for example, for FitFeet, they have researched about 4,000 people with ID, athletes of us, that came to the FitFeet program. And we saw actually that one or two of the athletes that come to the FitFeet screening need follow-up for some kind of reason. And we'll go in that a little bit further. But very important as well is we make a difference between follow-up, which should be done, but it's not that urgent, and urgent follow-up. And also, one or two of those athletes needed an urgent follow-up. So that means that either they have to leave the competition and really go to a doctor or a hospital for immediate care, or they can finish sometimes the competition, but then it's really important that in the next couple of days they have that follow-up. 1 on 5 of those athletes had needed that urgent follow-up. And I'm just going to show you some picture. I'm not a podologist, so I can explain everything, but I think you will see on those pictures that are taken during those FitFeet screenings, that we see a whole range of problems at the FitFeet stand. And on the left you will see also a little bit the different percentage of the different problems that we see. And I want to go in a little bit deeper on the shoe size. So 42%, so almost 1 on 2 again, has a problem with the shoe size. And it means not just a shoe size which is 1 or 2 sizes too small or too big, but sometimes it's even 4 to 5 shoe sizes too big or too small. We had, for example, an athlete that came with her sister to the FitFeet screening with a shoe size 35. She does the screening, and at the end it actually turns out that she had a shoe size 39 on the left and 40 on the right. So actually for a couple of years she was wearing shoe sizes 4 or 5 sizes too small. And the reason for this was that the sister told she was buying the shoes, and she just didn't have realized that when the athlete was growing, also his feet were growing. So he was just stuck in the same shoe size in the beginning. And of course, when you go with an athlete to the shoe shop and he gets, for example, if it's a girl, pinky, girly shoes, then she says, yes, they are fine, but actually they weren't, unfortunately. And again, I just want to give you an idea about the type of problems that we see in our population, in our athletes with ID, comparison with the general population, and then again you see that the problems they have are much more frequently seen than in a general population. Then fun fitness, so they do the strength, the balance, flexibility, and again you see that in very high numbers there are a lot of problems on this field again, on the strength and the balance and so on. Health promotion, we see a lot of overweight, a lot of obesity, also low bone density and exposure to smoking on the second hand then. And it's actually because of those reasons of overweight and obesity that we decided we had to do something about diabetes. So that was actually the starting point of setting up that diabetes prevention program. Healthy hearing, very important of course, because if there is a hearing loss, it has an impact on so many different levels, on the speech, on the language, the communication with people. There will be sometimes misunderstanding, or like I said in the example of the mom, no participation in the training, so social isolation it can lead to, and in the long end it can also influence cognition, behavior, and even lead to depression and dementia. So what we see a lot of problems is about excessive earwax. We know that in this population they really make a lot of earwax, much more than in the general population, and that is why we have the ENT specialist on site as well during those screenings, because he or she, the doctor, they will usually first go to that doctor, to the ENT specialist. He will look into the ear. If there is excessive earwax, which is in a lot of the cases the case, then the earwax will be removed, and then they will go to the audiologist and the students for further testing, so that the testing is also much more reliable. What we also see when they come to the ENT specialist is foreign objects. And for example, the left pictures, it's actually the top of pencils. So what happened, the athlete, her ear was itching, and she took a pencil to release the itching a little bit. But what she didn't had realized was that the top of the pencils had broken off, and they had stuck in the ear. And it's actually on that healthy athlete screening at the ENT specialist that those 3 pencil tops were discovered. And I think you can imagine if those had been stuck there for quite a long time, it would have caused a lot of inflammation, pain, and maybe in the long end even hearing loss. The second picture is actually the top of a little ear when you are listening to music, those things that you put in your ear that again had been stuck in the ear canal of one of our athletes. Also on the middle ear, we see a lot of problems, much more frequently than in general population, and the same is actually the truth for hearing loss. Now for hearing loss, I want to add as well that 2% of our athletes has a hearing aid, while in fact 12% should wear them. So a lot of people who can be helped with a hearing aid are not wearing them yet. And what we also see is of those 2%, 37 is not wearing them correctly. So that can be that there's, for example, a flat battery and that they have them in, but actually they're not working well. So this is really a big problem again that we see and encounter with our athletes. Healthy body. We see, for example, that 4.8% needed acute medical care and sometimes had to quit the competition. And again, for 86%, it was their first diagnosis. So that's what I said before, that a lot of the medical problems that we see with our athletes, often it's the first time that they are being discovered during those screenings. We see some cardiac insufficiency, but the last one I want to make sure that I mention as well is the rib fracture. We see that sometimes, and in this case it was actually an athlete that was going for his judo competition. So you can imagine an athlete with already an existing rib fracture and that is going to go in a couple of hours to judo. Of course, we had to say in this case that unfortunately his games were over. And I want to tell you also the Healthy Body Program, why it's so important for us, because often the communication is a bit difficult for the athletes. And actually through the Healthy Body Program, without asking very difficult questions, we can find out if there are certain problems. Opening eyes. So 15% never had ever in their life an eye exam before. So sometimes, again, like I said, it's the first time that things are being checked up during our national games. Some eye diseases that come often more frequently, 10%, and 23.5% needed a new pair of glass correction. So what that means is that thanks to the support of two partners, Essilor and Safilor, we are able to provide an athlete that comes to us and is in need of a new pair of glasses. We are able to provide that to them. And just to give you an idea about the visual acuity, so one is a picture on the left. On the right you have, for example, a 0.3 tree, and we did have athletes with a 0.3 tree that came to us, and during the testing it was shown that they needed a corrective pair of glasses. We gave it to them, and we can give them their sight back to a score of 1.0. So I just want to make sure that you know that this program is very important and that we can really change the life of those people with ID. Special smiles, what we see is a lot of gum inflammation, dental decay sometimes, and also tooth injury. And what I said before was that we want to change the healthcare for people with ID in the end, because we see all those problems and we know that they need more care and need, for example, also a longer duration time when they come to a doctor, which was shown in the video. And actually, thanks to the results of the Special Smiles program, they work together with our National Institute for Health and Disability Insurance. So for the people in Belgium, RISIF and INAMI. And thanks to those results, we were able to get some extra reimbursements for people with ID. For example, up to four times a year, they can go to a dentist to have that checked, which is of course different than for people in a general population. Diabetes prevention, like I said, it's a program that we set up only in 2019, so we don't have too much findings yet, but what we see is that 32% of the athletes, and I think it was about 500 athletes that came to those screening, had a slightly increased risk of type 2 diabetes, while 1 out of 10 had really an increased risk. And of course, for those, we are going to refer them to a general practitioner to get extra testing and to sometimes, in some cases, make the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. Very hot topic, and I think it's very important as well, just to give you some idea about what's the relation between COVID-19 and ID and intellectual disability. These are actually numbers of colleagues in the Netherlands of the facility of Sterker op eigen benen, and every now and then they are updating those numbers. So the first part you see a little bit who is the population that they have been tested and researched. And then we actually see in the highlights that there is not a lot of big difference whether the person has a mild ID, a moderate ID, of a very severe ID. The numbers of COVID-19 are more or less the same in each of those three categories. What we also see is if there is overweight, so BMI over 25, then we see that 52% of them had a confirmed COVID-19, 64% were deceased, and we see also a certain number of other medical conditions, and you can see on the slide how many times
Hi everyone, welcome back to the stream. Sorry for the brief interruption. We had some technical issues, our stream crashed, but now we're back. Annelies' presentation was almost over, so we will be going to the interview with Thibeau, our athlete, in a few seconds. So thank you if you're still watching. Well, then I will give the word to Thibeau.
Thank you. So I'm just going to explain very quickly how we are going to do it, because Thibeau does speak a few words English, but mostly it's going to be in Dutch. So I will ask the question in Dutch, but on the slide you will see the questions in English. Thibeau will answer in Dutch, and then Audrey, our colleague, she will make sure that also the students that doesn't speak Dutch, that they will also understand it. So she will take care of the translation. So I'm going to start with my first question. Thibeau, stel jezelf eventjes voor.
Hello, my name is Thibeau and I am athlete ambassador from Special Olympics Belgium, and my sport is unified sailing.
Oké, unified sailing. Leg dat eens uit, want ik heb daarnet ook gezegd tegen de studenten, unified, wat betekent dat? En wat betekent unified sailing?
Unified is eigenlijk samen sporten met mensen met een verstandelijke beperking en mensen zonder een beperking.
Ja, oké.
So actually, unified sailing is when there is a pair with an athlete with intellectual disability and an athlete without any intellectual disability.
Oké, perfect. De volgende vraag. Waarom vind je het belangrijk dat je unified zeilen kan doen?
Je kunt van elkaar bijleren. Zo leer ik veel van Matthias. En ook langs de andere kant leert hij ook eens omgaan hoe dat mensen met een verstandelijke beperking in elkaar zitten.
So he finds that actually playing a sport together, they learn a lot from each other. They work as a pair, and each of them has to learn something to the other one.
Oké, en hoe vaak train je en waar train je dan juist?
Sowieso als er wereldspelen zijn en wij mogen met zeilen mee, dan trainen wij gewoon winter en zomer. En wij trainen op het Gouwgeweel hier in Antwerpen. En wij trainen ook op fysiek.
So actually, when there are some World Games, they have to train even in winter as in summer, and they are training here somewhere near Antwerp, and they have also to train physically.
Oké, so de volgende vraag heeft Thibeau eigenlijk al meteen geantwoord, dus daar gaan we verder door. Nu, vind je het belangrijk dat je kan sporten in het algemeen, Thibeau?
Ja, sowieso is het belangrijk om te sporten. Je blijft beweging, je leert in de wereld sowieso nieuwe vrienden kennen en eigenlijk is het wel belangrijk.
He finds it really, really important. Playing a sport gives also the chance to make some friends, and yes, he finds it important for everybody, even people with intellectual disability.
En Thibeau, je hebt een aantal medailles rond je nek hangen. Misschien moet je ze maar een klein beetje meer naar de camera richten. Dan kunnen ze zien hoe groot de medaille dat wel is. Welke medaille vind je het belangrijkste? Welke vind je het leukste dat je die behaald hebt?
Ja, eigenlijk alle twee. De eerste is in 2015 in LA. Dat was eigenlijk onze allereerste wereldspelen, samen met Special Olympics België ook. En de tweede is eigenlijk die van vorig jaar en die was in Abu Dhabi voor nog eens onze titel te kunnen verdedigen.
The two are very important. The first one was in 2015, I think. It was in LA, and it was the first time he went as Belgium SOB, Special Olympics Belgium, and so it was his first title for golden medal. And the second is from last year. It was in Abu Dhabi, and they had to defend their title, and they succeeded it.
So maybe I just want to add to that. So Thibeau hasn't said it, but actually he's a world champion in sailing, and he has won it 2 times a year. So world champion here with you today, guys. Ja, je hebt dan die gouden medaille gewonnen voor LA in 2015. Daarvoor heb je ook een heel mooie erkenning gekregen hè, in België.
Ja, sowieso ben ik eigenlijk jachtman van het jaar geworden. Eigenlijk kun je dat vergelijken met de gouden schoen voor de beste voetballer van ons land. En dat is toch wel belangrijk. Ook dat ze toch zien dat mensen met een verstandelijke beperking ook top sport kunnen doen.
So in 2015, he had the chance to be recognized as the Youth Man of the Year. It is a bit like the golden shoe for the best footballer, and I find it important that even for people with intellectual disability, there is some recognition of very top sports athletes.
En je bent atleet-ambassadeur. Normaal zou je het gezicht van de Spelen zijn geweest voor de Spelen in Antwerpen in 2020, die we door corona hebben moeten annuleren, jammer genoeg. Maar we hebben dan virtuele Spelen georganiseerd en daar had jij ook wel een rol in. Wat heb je daar allemaal voor moeten doen?
Ja, sowieso was ik de eerste die de vlam mocht doorgeven eigenlijk. En dan mocht ik samen met burgemeester Bart de Wever de vlam gaan aansteken, de officiële vlam op de Grote Markt in Antwerpen. Dus, en ik was eigenlijk daar ook een beetje het gezicht voor.
So he was a bit the face of the games because he could be the first one to give the flame to the torch flame during the torch run, and he could, with the burgemeester from Antwerp, he could light the big flame, the very big one for the start of virtual the Special Olympics Belgium Games.
Mm-hmm. And again, I want to add something because Thibeau, he hasn't said it, but he has done a very important thing as well, because together with his unified partner, he has also give a very motivational speech to all of the athletes. That's correct, hè? Yeah. Nou, nog één vraagje rond het sportief gedeelte. Dan heb je nog sportieve doelen, want je hebt al 2 gouden medailles, 2 keer wereldkampioen. Heb je nog doelen?
Ja, misschien sowieso in 2023 de Special Olympics Road Games in Berlijn toch nog mee te maken. Dus dat is nog zo eentje dat we misschien kunnen meemaken.
So, hoping Corona isn't there anymore. In 2023, the following games are in Berlin, and he hopes to be able to defend his title of golden medal with unified sailing again.
Oké. Nu, we hebben het sportieve gedeelte een beetje gehad, maar je hebt dus ook een verstandelijke beperking. Hoe ben je dat te weten gekomen dat je die beperking had?
Dat is eigenlijk in het eerste leerjaar op een gewone school. Ik ging eigenlijk naar een gewone school en daar hebben ze ontdekt dat ik het moeilijk had met lezen en schrijven en dat we toch beslist hebben om naar een buitengewoon onderwijs te gaan.
So first he went to a usual school, and he was in his first year when they found out he had some problem with writing and reading. So they decided to redirect him to special school education.
Mm-hmm. En je zei, je hebt vooral problemen met lezen en schrijven. Hoe zit dat dan nu op vandaag? Hoe is dat verbeterd? Hoe zit het daarmee?
Ja, sowieso dankzij het buitengewoon onderwijs en dankzij Unified Sailing en Special Olympics België. En daarnaast sinds vorig jaar mee een project bij Antwerp Management. Zo moest ik daar toch wel zelfstandig schrijven en lezen. Dus het zit er wel terug goed in.
So thanks to a lot of different projects, it's unusual special education with a Special Olympics Belgium and with Antwerp Management School project. He has to train it, and so it increases, I think.
En je sprak over Antwerp Management School. Dus ja, ik vermoed dat je wel werkt. Wat doe je zo van werk tijdens de week? Hoe ziet jouw week eruit?
Ik werk 3 dagen als vrijwilliger bij de stad Mortsel. En dan sinds vorig jaar werk ik ook als vast junior researcher bij Antwerp Management School voor een Europees project waar dat mensen met een verstandelijke beperking in het normaal economie kunnen functioneren.
So on one hand, he volunteers at the city of Mortsel in the roads. And on the other hand, he's part of Antwerp Management School as a junior researcher. And it is in a project to include people with intellectual disability inside the economic system and inside the entreprise.
Companies.
Companies, ja.
Nog een laatste vraagje rond dat thema. Thibeau, hoe ga je om met het feit dat je een verstandelijke beperking hebt?
Vroeger, toen ik naar die buitengewoon onderwijsschool ging, dan wou ik het zelfs niet aanvaarden. Maar dankzij SOB en mijn Sportunified Sailing en sinds vorig jaar nu AMS, is het eigenlijk aanvaard.
Younger was it really difficult to deal with it, but thanks to Special Olympics Belgium, thanks to AMS and since last year, and thanks to sport and everything, it gets better.
Nu, we hebben het gehad vandaag over het Healthy Athletes programma. Wat vind je ervan?
Ja, dat is toch wel belangrijk bij de atleten van Special Olympics, ook in gans de wereld en sowieso in België. Ik ben ook helemaal gescreend door Healthy Athletes, dus ik weet wat dat is.
He thinks that it is very important for any athletes from international side or even in national side. It's important for everybody.
Mm-hmm. En je zegt je hebt het meegemaakt, het programma Healthy Athletes. Zijn er dan ook problemen gediagnosticeerd?
Ja, sowieso had ik bij de oorarts een gelichte gehoorverlies. En daar hebben ze eigenlijk gezegd van, kijk, je moet naar de oorarts om dat toch eens te laten checken. En dat hebben we ook gedaan. En de oorarts zei van, ja, je hebt een gesmal, een klein gehoor, dus daarom.
So he has done the Healthy Athletes program, and they found out they thought that hearing loss, but finally, when they researched a little bit further, they found out that it was a narrow ear canal and the production of too much earwax.
Mm-hmm. Nu, wist je dat op voorhand dat je een gehoorprobleem had? Want ik denk dat er ook nog naast dat gehoorprobleem ook op het vlak van de tanden bijvoorbeeld een probleem was. Wist je dat je die problemen had of hoe zat dat juist?
Bij mijn oren wist ik het. Wisten we het door mijn huisarts. Bij de tandarts moesten we sowieso gaan, omdat dat eigenlijk vlak voor Abu Dhabi was. En we hebben dat dan toch onder handen genomen.
Hearing problem was the only one. Wasn't the only one. There was also a problem with its tooth decay. And for the hearing, he knew the problem before going to a Healthy Athlete program, but not for the teeth problem.
Ja, en aan de andere kant van de camera zitten allemaal studenten geneeskunde en die later dokter worden. Hoe voelde jij je tegenover dokters? Hoe was jullie relatie ten opzichte van een dokter en is dat veranderd vroeger ten opzichte van nu?
Ja, vroeger had ik heel veel schrik van dokters en spuitjes. Maar nu, dankzij Healthy Athletes, is dat helemaal veranderd. En vraag ik ook aan mijn tandarts zelfs, ook aan mijn huisarts, om te weten wat dat ze gaat doen en zo. Ik ben er nu wel geïnteresseerd wel.
First, he had a big fear of stings, but thanks to the athlete program and thanks to his own experience in it, his interest in it has increased, and now he says that he is quite interested in it.
En eventjes kijken naar de volgende vraag. Ja, dus het Healthy Athletes Program, ik heb ook het al eventjes benoemd in de presentatie, maar vind jij het belangrijk dat studenten en professionelen deelnemen daaraan, aan zo'n gezondheidsscreenings, dat ze daar als vrijwilliger naartoe komen?
Ja, sowieso, omdat ze eigenlijk ook van mensen met een verstandelijke beperking leren omgaan. Want die mensen, zoals ik, die zullen wat schrik hebben in dokters. Maar als ze zien dat je alles eigenlijk rustig uitlegt tegen mensen met een verstandelijke beperking, dan zullen ze geen schrik meer hebben.
He thinks that it's important to have experience of that, because when you take the time to explain it and to show that you are confident in it, you can make people with intellectual disability being far less stressed about it.
En heb je het gevoel dat mensen jou anders behandelen, benaderen, omdat je een verstandelijke beperking hebt?
Ja, dankzij het sporten en sowieso mijn vaste werk bij AMS en als atleet-ambassadeur word ik eigenlijk als een gewone volwaardige werknemer gebracht en bij Special Olympics als een gewone topsporter.
So I'm just gonna explain. So he's just saying that thanks to the Special Olympics, he feels really that people are treating him there at Special Olympics as a top athlete. Same for IMS, for the Antwerp Management School. He says that he feels again that actually people are not treating him differently, but just treating him as a regular employee of the company. En dan een laatste vraagje om af te sluiten. Zoals ik zei tijdens de presentatie, weten soms mensen niet zo goed hoe moet ik nu gaan communiceren met iemand met een verstandelijke beperking. Heb je daar rond nog tips voor de studenten die aan het luisteren zijn?
Ja, gewoon uzelf zijn en gewoon alles rustig uitleggen tegen de atleten die daar langskomen bij Healthy Athlete.
So he has advices for people who are professional people in health sector. So it was to good explain. I don't remember. To good explain, I think. And
yeah, just to talk slowly, to talk to him as an athlete, not to his parents that are with him, and just to talk to make sure he understands it really good what he has
and be yourself.
Be yourself. Yeah, that's again awesome. So with this question we came to the end of our presentation. We do hope that you have now a better understanding, on the one hand, what is Special Olympics, what is that Healthy Athletes program, but more importantly for you guys to have those medical problems, and especially the high frequency of them, much more than a general population, to take that with you when in the future you have a patient with ID sitting opposite from you, and to just think about a little bit what we have said today. And we do hope that you now have a better idea also what is ID. You got to know Thibeau, you got to see the video, you see that there's a big difference and big different levels in ID. So I just hope that you really thought it was an interesting topic, and that you have some take-home messages for the future to take with you. So with this we end our presentation, and if there are any questions for me, for Audrey or Thibeau, and if there's still time, of course, we are happy to answer them.
Hello everyone, welcome back. We'll have a short Q&A session now because we got some questions in. So we'll now be are going to talk with our speakers. Well, firstly, you provide healthcare for athletes, which is amazing. But in the end, of course, someone has to pay the bill. So how do you do that?
Well, all the health screenings that are being provided at Special Olympics, they are free, like I told during the presentation. And it's actually thanks to the support of volunteers, on the one hand, that do the testing, and a lot of many different companies that support us with the testing material and so on. And of course, once the athlete, if he's in need to go to a specialist for further follow-up, that's of course something which is taken care by the parents of the athlete. And luckily in Belgium we do have a good health insurance system, so in that that's a bonus for the Belgium athletes.
Also, of course, Special Olympics wants to be there for everyone, poor or rich or whatever race. And so my question is, with that as your goal, in reality, is it easily doable to also represent athletes who grow up in a less privileged household? Is it harder to do that?
Like you said, we don't make a difference at Special Olympics for that. We do offer all our activities for all different levels of athletes. And in fact, to participate at the national games, there is a little cost, but those costs are very low. And sometimes it's also that in an institution, for example, if there's a club and they're going to send 5 athletes to the games, that they do some kind of fundraising to make sure they cover that cost to participate. And the screenings, they are free. So for that, it's easy. Everybody can participate.
That's great. Another question that came in is how are volunteers trained for the health screening regarding, for example, understanding people with an intellectual disability, for example?
So in most of the programs, there's actually an on-site training before the start of the screening. So, for example, as we start screening on a Thursday at 1 o'clock, then actually before noon, there is someone that explains the different test stations, but also give that explanation about the communication with the people and how they should interact with the athletes that are coming.
Someone also wondered if you could elaborate on how Special Olympics helps participants improve their social and emotional skills.
Yeah, I think it's just sport. Sport brings people together, and by doing sports together, like Thibeau he does with his mate in unified sailing, I think it speaks for itself that by doing that you get the communication with other people, and also the games. It's normally without Corona, it's a big event with a lot of. Also in the evening we organize animation. We have little groups that come and perform, and also in those moments, you see all the athletes together, but. Not only athletes, it's athletes and volunteers, parents, coaches. It's all one big family, actually.
That's beautiful. One last question. It's a personal question for Thibeau. What does his training program look like?
Hoe dat jouw trainingsprogramma eruit ziet?
Goh, dat is eigenlijk sowieso als het wereldspelen zijn, proberen wij 4 keer per dag te trainen. Per week op het water en daarnaast ook fysiek 2 keer naar de fitness of gaan lopen echt.
Yeah. So he says when he's training for World Games, it's 4 times a week that he tries to be on the water to really exercise his sailing skills. But on top of that, he's 2 times a week he's doing conditioning training like running and physical weight, I think, krachttraining ook. So it's a combination of that in a year of World Games or National Games.
All right. Well, those were all the questions I got. Thank you very much for answering them. Thank you very much for giving a very interesting presentation. And thank you at home for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time.